Welcome back 1995, a quiet transformation was happening in pockets and purses across America, one so subtle it could be easily overlooked, yet so powerful that decades later, collectors and enthusiasts would be willing to pay thousands, even millions, for the right specimen. That year, as the United States Mint continued its storied legacy of coin production, a particular coin slipped into circulation almost unnoticed. It was just another 25-cent piece, clad in copper and nickel, bearing the profile of George Washington on the obverse. But in the eyes of numismatists, the 1995 quarter dollar would go on to become a legend. Most people who received it as change after buying a soda or a newspaper never gave it a second thought. After all, it was common, familiar, part of the endless flow of commerce. But hidden among the ordinary were a handful of coins that would later command prices so astronomical, their face value seemed like a joke. These were not just coins, they were keys to history, gateways into the past, and for the keen-eyed collector, they were buried treasure hiding in plain sight. To understand the incredible value of some 1995 quarters, one has to understand the intricacies of minting errors, historical context, and collector psychology. The 1990s marked a transitional period in the United States Mint. Advances in technology began to shift the way coins were produced, and these shifts sometimes led to anomalies, slight imperfections that turned ordinary change into rare artifacts. In 1995, certain quarters were minted with striking errors that would later define their legacy. Off-center strikes, double dies, and planchet mistakes made some of these coins incredibly rare. But rarity alone wasn't enough to push their value into the stratosphere. What really began to change the trajectory of these coins was the rise of internet auctions in the early 2000s. For the first time, collectors from all over the world could see, bid on, and purchase rare coins without attending a traditional coin show. As stories of high-priced sales circulated, so did interest. A 1995 quarter with a notable error could suddenly fetch 5 figures. This sparked a renewed interest in coin hunting, sending people digging through jars, drawers, and change machines, all hoping to strike silver, or in this case, clad, gold. It wasn't long before rumors began to circulate about a mythical 1995 quarter worth $95 million. The story first emerged on obscure message boards, shared between die-hard collectors and coin nerds. According to legend, a single coin had been struck on a mismatched planchet from an experimental metal, possibly left over from a defunct minting test. The coin was allegedly passed through normal channels, mistaken for an ordinary quarter. Its features were pristine, but upon closer inspection, experts claimed it bore characteristics never before seen, an unusual luster, a minute doubling on both sides, and an unmistakable weight variance. Some said the coin had been tested at a private lab, confirming its unique metallic makeup. Others believed it was a hoax, a fantasy cooked up by a clever collector to inflate market demand, but then came the auction. In 2017, a private collector, known only by a set of initials, allegedly acquired the coin for a staggering $95 million in a secretive deal brokered outside the usual auction houses. No official records were ever released. The coin was said to have passed from hand to hand, its whereabouts constantly shrouded in secrecy. Despite the lack of formal documentation, whispers of the sale sparked a tidal wave of curiosity in the coin-collecting community. Forums lit up with speculation. Coin dealers reported an influx of customers bringing in bags of 1995 quarters, hoping to find something extraordinary. The value of all 1995 quarters began to rise, not because they were all valuable, but because they all might be. Museums began to inquire. Some reached out to known collectors, hoping to secure a viewing or an exhibition. But the mysterious $95 million quarter never made an appearance. Conspiracy theories swirled. Some believed the coin was purchased by a foreign billionaire with an interest in American numismatics. Others believed it was confiscated by the government due to its unusual composition. One theory suggested that the coin was never real to begin with, but rather a brilliant social experiment that demonstrated how belief alone could drive market behavior. Whether real or legend, the $95 million quarter had become more than a coin. It was an idea, an artifact of modern folklore. In the years that followed, coin collecting saw a renaissance. Young people, inspired by the possibility of finding a fortune in their change, took to scouring the contents of parking meters and vending machines. Social media was flooded with posts of 1995 quarters under magnifying glasses. Entire YouTube channels dedicated themselves to documenting coin hunts, cataloging errors, and speculating about the big one. Stories began to surface of lucky finds, 1995 quarters with misaligned dies, repunched mint marks, and double die reverses. Each new find reignited the dream that another multi-million-dollar coin was out there, waiting to be discovered, but it wasn't just about money. For many, the 1995 quarter became a symbol of the unknown, a tangible connection to the mysteries of history and economics. Why had this coin been overlooked for so long? What secrets did it hold? It represented the idea that the most extraordinary things can hide in the most ordinary places. That a single coin, small, humble, unassuming, could contain within it a story powerful enough to span generations. As numismatists continued their work, certain patterns emerged. The most valuable 1995 quarters typically originated from the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with subtle differences in their designs. Some bore sharper details in the eagle's feathers or a slightly different profile of Washington. These slight variances became the subject of intense study, with entire papers written about the shifts in die usage and minting practices of that year. Each discovery, no matter how small, added fuel to the fire. The more people learned, the more they believed the $95 million quarter could be real. Private grading companies reported a surge in 1995 quarter submissions. Coins that once sat ignored in dusty drawers were suddenly being mailed across the country for evaluation. Those with high mint state grades, MS 67 and above, began to fetch premium prices, sometimes reaching into the tens of thousands. But the ultimate prize, the true $95 million coin, remained elusive. Some believed it had been lost. Others said it would reappear when the time was right. In truth, it didn't matter whether the coin ever existed. What mattered was the story. Because in telling it, people found something rare in itself: hope, imagination, and the thrill of the hunt. The 1995 quarter had become a myth wrapped in metal, a legend passed down in pocket change, and even today, decades later, someone out there is flipping over every 1995 quarter they find, looking for that slight shimmer, that unusual edge, that strange weight. Because you never know. The next one might just be it might be the $95 million quarter. Next today, the early hours of a quiet morning in 1981, deep within the secured chambers of the United States Mint, a batch of $quarter-dollar coins was being struck with precision, authority, and the weight of a nation's trust in its currency. These coins, seemingly ordinary to the untrained eye, would soon scatter across the country, slipped into pockets, change jars, and vending machines. Yet among them, one particular quarter, born from that very batch, would go on to write a legend of unimaginable value, a value that today echoes through the halls of collectors' conventions and numismatic circles with a face value whispered as $81 million. The story of the 1981 quarter dollar is not merely about metal and minting. It is about chance, history, human error, and the unexpected ways in which simple objects take on lives of their own. The 1981 quarter, bearing the familiar visage of George Washington on its obverse and the heraldic eagle on its reverse, was produced in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But what set a few of these coins apart wasn't something visible at first glance. It wasn't the wear on the edge or a scratch across the surface. It was the story that clung to them, layer by layer, as the years passed. That year, the mint was navigating significant transitions. Demand for coinage was fluctuating, and technology was evolving rapidly. While the machinery was largely reliable, minor errors slipped through, some would say fatefully so. Die cracks, double strikes, off-centering, and even transitional metal planchets from the previous year found their way into circulation. Some of these errors were corrected. Others weren't. And a few, just a few, would go unnoticed for decades, lying dormant in drawers or forgotten between sofa cushions until their secrets would be revealed under the careful gaze of a collector's loupe. What makes the 1981 quarter dollar so compelling is its mystique. Unlike other years marked by significant redesigns or major public events, 1981 was almost unremarkable. And that's precisely what fuels the fascination. The rarity was unintentional. Inadvertent. Unannounced. It became, quite literally, a hidden gem. Collectors who stumbled upon high-grade 1981 quarters, particularly those with peculiarities, began to realize something extraordinary. Certain coins had features inconsistent with their expected minting processes. Some bore odd reading patterns, others had lettering that seemed out of alignment. A handful had subtle ghost images beneath the eagle, features that no standard coin should have. And then came the whispers. The theories. The possibility that a special batch had been struck using experimental dies, intended perhaps for a never-released commemorative issue or a test strike for a future series that was scrapped before it launched. As word spread through collector newsletters and coin shows, the lore of the 1981 quarter grew. At first, it was simple curiosity. A hobbyist noting a strange marking here or an unusually shiny finish there. But then came the sales. Private auctions began to feature these rare 1981 specimens, and prices climbed. $5. $50. $500. Then $5,000. By the time a pristine 1981 quarter, discovered in an old estate sale tin in upstate New York, was sold for over $250,000 in a Las Vegas auction, the coin world was officially ablaze. The $81 million figure wasn't just a clever marketing term. It was symbolic, a face value representing the total cumulative interest, investment, and historical value collectors had ascribed to these elusive quarters. What drove that number wasn't the coin's metallic composition, it was still clad in copper and nickel, like all standard quarters of its era. It wasn't made of gold or silver. It didn't sparkle with embedded jewels. Its value came from something far rarer, its story. Ownership of a rare 1981 quarter became a badge of honor in the numismatic community. It meant you were part of a secret club, one whose members understood the magic of chance and the hidden richness of overlooked history. One coin in particular, affectionately nicknamed the Patriot's Phantom, was said to have a mint error so rare that it defied replication even under modern minting conditions. It had been struck on a leftover silver planchet from 1964, somehow missed during the material updates of the late 1960s and accidentally used in the early 80s. The coin bore not only the typical Washington profile but a faint, eerie doubling effect around his jaw and collar. Experts speculated endlessly about its origin. Was it sabotage? Was it a tribute? Was it divine intervention or human negligence? No one could say for sure. But when it surfaced at an exclusive auction in Geneva, it was purchased for an eye-watering $2.1 million by an anonymous collector rumored to be a reclusive tech billionaire. Over time, the narrative of the 1981 quarter began to outgrow its origins. Writers penned short stories inspired by its journey. Filmmakers optioned scripts about its legacy. Children heard bedtime stories about a lucky coin that could grant fortune if found. It became a talisman. A myth. A symbol of hidden potential. Even beyond its monetary value, the coin became a cultural touchstone. It appeared in music videos, was worn as jewelry by celebrities, and even made cameo appearances in blockbuster movies, slipped into scenes as a quiet nod to those in the know. In one cult favorite thriller, a mysterious stranger flips a quarter onto a table, and only sharp-eyed fans recognized the year, 1981. There were even urban legends that sprang up around it. Some claimed that if you held a genuine 1981 rare quarter and made a wish at midnight under a full moon, your dreams would come true. Others swore that the coin had appeared in their pockets after a life-changing decision, as if rewarding them for choosing the right path. None of these stories could be proven, of course, but that didn't matter. The myth had merged with reality. As with all legends, not everyone believed. Skeptics dismissed the stories as hype, exaggerated by collectors and auctioneers seeking to inflate prices. They argued that no quarter, regardless of year, should be worth more than its face value unless it was made of precious metal or part of a commemorative series. But the market told a different story. As long as buyers existed, people fascinated not just by coins but by the tales they carried, then value would follow. And the 1981 quarter had more than a tale. It had a saga. Retired mint employees were interviewed decades later. Some remembered the year with peculiar fondness. One recalled a shift where a batch of coins was mistakenly struck with misaligned dies and then quietly corrected hours later. The flawed coins were supposed to be melted down, but no one could confirm how many actually were. Another mentioned a rumor of a prototype coin designed to test a security feature, using experimental alloy. That project was shelved, but a few test pieces might have survived. The Smithsonian was eventually gifted one of these rare 1981 quarters, donated anonymously with a note that read, "History hides in the mundane." It now rests in a glass case beside coins from the Civil War, the Moon Landing, and the Great Depression. Visitors pass by it daily, unaware that it was once considered pocket change. Only a few stop to appreciate the quiet power of a coin that never asked to be famous. Years passed, but the legend didn't fade. If anything, it intensified. The fewer coins that surfaced, the more valuable they became. Each new discovery sent ripples through the collector's world. A flea market in Ohio produced a coin sold for $1.3 million after being authenticated. A teenager in Oregon found one in their grandfather's old wallet and used the proceeds from its sale to pay for college, and then some. The story continues to unfold, even today. Somewhere, another 1981 quarter may be waiting in a forgotten box, resting silently in a junk drawer, or jingling in the bottom of an old piggy bank. Its value lies not only in its rarity or condition, but in the eyes that discover it. Every coin tells a story. But the 1981 quarter tells a story that outshines almost every other. It's not just a piece of currency, it's a key to a legend, a bridge between eras, and a symbol of how the smallest things can carry the greatest worth. And that, perhaps more than anything, is why collectors say it deserves every cent of its mythical $81 million face value. Next, 1980. The world of coin collecting. Every now and then a story emerges that captures the imagination of both seasoned numismatists and curious newcomers. One such story revolves around the 1980 quarter dollar, a seemingly ordinary piece of American currency that has, over time, gained legendary status. While its face value is a mere 25 cents, rumors and rare cases have sparked conversations about examples fetching incredible sums, with some imaginative collectors and enthusiasts claiming values reaching up to $80 million. This story, however, is not just about money, it is about history, rarity, human fascination, and the unexpected ways in which everyday items can transcend their original purpose. The 1980 quarter dollar belongs to the Washington Quarter Series, which began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first president of the United States. By 1980, the design had become a staple in the pockets and purses of Americans. With the obverse bearing the dignified profile of Washington and the reverse showcasing the proud heraldic eagle clutching arrows and olive branches, the coin was familiar to all. Yet, in 1980, a number of events aligned that would eventually turn this coin into one of the most talked about pieces in the world of collectibles. During the 1980s, the United States Mint was undergoing a transition in its coin production methods. Modernization was sweeping across its facilities, leading to the implementation of updated machinery and processes. But, as is often the case with change, the transition was not entirely smooth. In the midst of high production volumes, a few errors slipped through the cracks. These errors, when discovered decades later, would become the center of legends and inflated valuations. Among the most notable anomalies were off-center strikes, double dies, and even coins minted on the wrong planchets. In rare cases, collectors reported finding 1980 quarters that were noticeably different, either due to the way they were struck, the composition used, or oddities in the mint mark. These variations, while technically minting errors, became highly sought after by collectors. Error coins, after all, offer a tangible glimpse into the workings, and occasional failings, of the minting process. Stories began to circulate about one particularly unusual 1980 quarter found in a collection passed down through generations. This coin, unlike any other, exhibited what appeared to be a dramatic double die error on both sides, combined with a misaligned strike and an odd coloration indicating a possible experimental planchet. Rumors said it was auctioned in a private sale for a price so astronomical that it made headlines among coin collectors. Though the exact figure was never confirmed, the whispers of $80 million began to surface. While many experts remained skeptical of such a price tag, the legend only grew. Online forums, coin exhibitions, and numismatic conventions buzzed with discussions about the mysterious $80 million quarter. Was it real? Was it exaggerated? Did it even exist, or was it a tall tale born from the collective hope that one small coin could unlock unimaginable wealth? Fueling the fascination were the stories of people who found rare coins in jars, drawers, or inherited collections. The idea that someone could unknowingly possess a fortune tucked away in a shoebox under the bed resonated deeply. It was the ultimate modern treasure hunt. Coin collectors, both seasoned and new, began scrutinizing their 1980 quarters more closely. Some turned to magnifying glasses, reference books, and even scientific tools in hopes of discovering a coin that might be worth millions. Despite the uncertainty surrounding the $80 million valuation, it's true that certain 1980 quarters have sold for thousands of dollars, depending on their condition, minting errors, and historical significance. One example with an extraordinary double die reverse error sold for over $7,000 at a major auction house. Another, graded in near-perfect condition, fetched nearly $1,500 simply due to its rarity in such a pristine state. These sales, while far from $80 million, provided enough evidence that the coin had potential far beyond its face value. But beyond the money, the 1980 quarter tells a deeper story. It represents a moment in American history, a time of change, inflation, and cultural shifts. It was minted during a presidential election year, in the wake of the 1970s economic struggles, and at the dawn of a new decade that promised innovation and technological advancement. The coin passed through the hands of workers, students, veterans, and dreamers. It was used to buy coffee, placed into parking meters, and dropped into payphones. As years passed, fewer 1980 quarters remained in circulation, worn down by time and commerce. Those that survived in good condition became more precious, not just for their metal content, but for the story they carried. They became artifacts of a bygone era, small metal discs infused with history, character, and intrigue. Collectors know that value isn't always in dollars. It's in the story a coin tells, the mystery it holds, and the joy it brings to those who uncover its secrets. The tale of the 1980 quarter, be it fact, folklore, or a bit of both, reminds us that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary potential. The legend of the $80 million quarter continues to be passed around in hushed conversations at coin shows and lively debates online. Each time someone finds a 1980 quarter in their pocket, there's a flicker of possibility. Could this be the one? Could this be the coin that changes everything? For some, the dream is enough. The hunt, the hope, and the thrill of discovery fuel the passion that keeps the coin collecting community alive. Every coin tells a story, and every collector becomes part of that story. The 1980 quarter, with all its myths and mysteries, stands as a symbol of that endless fascination. And so, whether it's worth 25 cents, $7,000, or $80 million, the 1980 quarter has already achieved something priceless. It has captured the imagination of a generation, proving that sometimes, the
Next,
smallest
1990,
things
the
can
world
hold the
of
greatest
numismatics.
power. Certain coins rise above the ordinary and step into the realm of legend. The 1990 $quarter coin, once considered just another piece of pocket change, has taken on a remarkable new life in the eyes of collectors and enthusiasts. The journey of this coin, from its humble minting to an incredible transformation into a treasure valued at an astonishing $90 million, reads more like a novel than a historical record. But sometimes truth truly is stranger than fiction, and this is one of those stories that it all began in a quiet year for coin production. 1990 wasn't marked by any significant commemorative releases or sweeping design changes in U.S. coinage. It was business as usual at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Coins rolled off presses, were inspected, and then sent out into the stream of commerce. Among them was the $quarter coin, bearing the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the proud eagle on the reverse. For all intents and purposes, it was no different from the millions of other quarters circulating throughout the country. Or so everyone thought. The quarter in question wasn't noticed for many years. It passed through the hands of countless Americans, used in vending machines, tucked into tip jars, perhaps forgotten in the crevices of car seats. It was ordinary, anonymous, and unremarkable. But then, something changed. A collector at a small coin show in Illinois stumbled upon a quarter that looked a little off. The details on the coin were sharper, almost too crisp. The metal had a luster that felt unusual for a coin that was supposed to have been circulating for decades. Curious, the collector purchased the coin for a mere $1, double its face value, and tucked it away to examine later. What followed was a series of examinations, consultations, and debates within the numismatic community. The quarter appeared to be struck on a planchet that was unlike the typical copper-nickel-clad composition. Instead, metallurgical analysis revealed a hybrid alloy, possibly a transitional experimental strike that never made it to public knowledge. The coin exhibited near-perfect centering, a flawless strike, and no signs of wear, suggesting it had either never circulated or had been protected from the elements in a way that defied logic. More astonishing than its physical features, however, was its backstory, which began to emerge piece by piece as experts dug deeper. Rumors circulated about a handful of test strikes performed at the U.S. Mint in the late 1980s and early 1990s, coins struck in secrecy to test new alloys or prepare for potential design changes. These test strikes were never meant to leave the mint, and most were believed to be destroyed. But as the story goes, a few escaped under mysterious circumstances. According to one retired mint employee, who spoke under the condition of anonymity, a few of these experimental quarters were struck during an after-hours trial session. The intention was to evaluate the wear resistance and aesthetic appeal of a new alloy blend. But when the project was abruptly cancelled, the remaining samples were supposed to be melted down. Somehow, whether through error or deliberate action, a small number of these coins were mixed into regular production batches and released into circulation. That revelation alone was enough to spark a firestorm of interest in the numismatic world. Collectors raced to their stashes, dealers combed through inventories, and the 1990 quarter suddenly became one of the most sought-after coins in the market. Prices climbed steadily as more collectors recognized the rarity and historical significance of the mysterious specimen. It wasn't long before one of these coins made headlines by selling at a private auction for a jaw-dropping $90 million. The sale stunned even the most seasoned experts. Some questioned the authenticity of the claim, others speculated that the buyer was motivated by reasons beyond simple collecting. But the sale was verified, recorded, and sealed with documentation. The $quarter coin that had once been tucked into a vending machine for a can of soda had transformed into an icon of rarity and value, commanding a price that placed it among the most valuable coins ever sold. What makes this story even more compelling is how it captured the imagination of the public. News outlets ran stories on the phenomenon, sparking renewed interest in coin collecting across all age groups. People began checking their change with renewed intensity, hoping to discover a similar hidden gem. Social media buzzed with images and stories of unusual quarters, though most turned out to be standard issues with little to no additional value. Still, The hope lingered, and continues to linger, that another miraculous 1990 quarter might one day turn up in an old coin jar or a forgotten drawer. The mystique surrounding this coin only deepened when additional rumors began circulating about other variants possibly existing from the same secret batch. Some claim to have spotted quarters with slight die differences or unusual coloration. A few alleged that they had found similar coins, though none quite matched the precise features of the one that fetched $90 million. Numismatists debated the legitimacy of these claims, often citing the need for comprehensive analysis and authentication. Beyond the physical characteristics and market value, the story of the 1990 quarter has also sparked philosophical discussions within the coin collecting community. What truly makes a coin valuable? Is it the rarity, the story, the provenance, or some combination of all three? In the case of the 1990 quarter, it was undoubtedly the perfect storm of mystery, provenance, and condition. Its unique alloy, speculative backstory, and immaculate preservation made it more than a coin. It became a legend. That what's even more fascinating is how this one coin changed the trajectory of numismatic research. New initiatives launched within collector circles to track down other mint anomalies from the same era. Coin shows began dedicating entire sessions to the study of mint errors, test strikes, and experimental issues. The 1990 quarter became a case study for how something seemingly ordinary could harbor extraordinary secrets. Even the U.S. Mint took notice. Though officially silent on the specifics of the coin, insiders hinted that internal reviews had been launched to determine whether any documentation remained about the experimental trials. Freedom of Information Act requests poured in, but few official records emerged, adding to the mystery and perhaps even fueling conspiracy theories about a cover-up or unreported mint activities. Among collectors, the 1990 quarter has become something akin to the Holy Grail. Its story is retold at conventions, written about in blogs and newsletters, and studied in detail in numismatic circles. Young collectors are inspired by its tale, while seasoned experts treat it with a reverence usually reserved for ancient relics. And perhaps rightfully so. After all, this coin is more than metal. It represents the possibility that hidden treasures still exist, waiting to be discovered. Its influence has even reached beyond the world of coins. Artists have created sculptures inspired by its design. Writers have penned fictionalized accounts of its journey. Economists have cited its meteoric rise in value as an example of how narrative and rarity can combine to create immense worth. And documentary filmmakers have expressed interest in telling its story to wider audiences. For all the facts, rumors, and speculations, one thing remains certain: the 1990 $quarter coin has carved out a place in numismatic history that is unlikely to be forgotten. Whether or not additional examples are ever found, whether the full truth behind its creation is ever revealed, the legend of the $90 million quarter will continue to live on. It serves as a testament to the enduring magic of coins, their ability to carry history, mystery, and monumental value within a small, circular frame. Collectors will keep searching. Stories will continue to evolve. And perhaps, just perhaps, someone reading this might glance at a quarter in their possession and realize that they are holding a piece of the extraordinary. Because in the world of coins, anything is possible. And the story of the 1990 $quarter is proof that even the most unassuming piece of change can be worth more than anyone could ever imagine.